Okay, awesome. Welcome. We're at March already, if you can believe it. I know. And you guys, first off, I want to thank you so much for consistently, showing up, giving me your time, and just being able to work through this together. For me, the best way that I can, learn or solidify something is to have the opportunity to teach it to somebody else. And so as I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about for this month, habits came to mind. So when I think about this topic, in my mind, it's a little more masculine. Like in the past, we've talked a little bit more about, feminine, spiritual topics, and this feels a little more masculine, and that's because we have to take action and all of that good stuff. But I think it's very timely and goes right in line with, anything that we want to do, both, personally, professionally. Definitely goes in line with the Same 20 program when it comes to creating new habits. So before we jump into the habits portion of today, so you guys can see what I'm looking at. So I keep you won't be able to read it, but the point is I keep a journal on my desk and I keep it open and I keep a Post-it note and I write my ahas. And so when we meet every month, I like to just kind of recap, and these are kind of my big ahas that were worthy enough to make a piece of paper to be able to share it with you guys. So for what it's worth, I usually read these and think it's meant for somebody to hear. And then the other thing that we talked about last time is sometimes you guys will hear things, you'll hear me saying the same things. You'll hear things 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 15 times, and it might hit you differently, or it might hit you, differently than it did last time. So if you hear things more than once, maybe ask yourself, is there a message in there for me? Am I supposed to hear this today? What can I take away? So, one thing that was really cool that happened to me this morning is I noticed that I was like, I felt my mood kind of, like change. It happens all the time, but these things are usually things that happen. We don't give it any thought. So something inside of me shifted. And I automatically thought, oh, what do I want to do? Like, what do I want to do to get out of this? Do I want to read? Do I want to, do I want to do something? And I said, no, no, no. I want to understand why I feel this way, not what am I going to do to not feel this way. Does that make sense? So it was really interesting. So I sat with it instead of like going to grab something to eat or going to grab a book or turning on a podcast or, going to my computer to start work. It was like, no, I want to sit down and try to like see if anything comes through as to why I feel this way, not what am I going to do to automatically avoid feeling that. So that was my aha, not so much what came out of it, but that realization of, oh my gosh, my body was really uncomfortable. And my normal routine would be to do something to prevent that uncomfortable feeling. And I do think that what we're going to talk about today with habits plays into that quite a bit. The other thing I wrote down that I loved was taking action outside of your comfort zone is the magic zone. I love that. So taking action outside of your comfort zone is the magic zone. So that to me was awesome. The other thing, Michelle and I had we had a conversation earlier and we were talking about visualization. And I know that in these classes we've talked about visualization, but I just want to, well, here's a opportunity to be vulnerable. Is anybody practicing visualization? Love it. Okay, good. So something to think about when you're visualizing, and this is really, really important. It's the difference between associated visualization and disassociated visualization. And what I mean by that is if you are associated, you are picturing yourself, and Gina, I know you've been visualizing with Chad. So when you are doing this, you're picturing yourself in this scenario and you're seeing out of your eyes. So you're not watching yourself. So for example, if I'm picturing myself on stage speaking to people, I am actually in my body. I'm looking out at the audience. Maybe I see my hands, I see, the microphone, I see my feet, but I don't see my full body, right? Because I'm in looking out. That's associated visualization. The disassociated would be like if I were an observer in the audience up watching Michelle on stage, right? So you want to make sure that as you visualize, you are doing the associated visualization. You are in your body. Like let's say you're walking on the beach, you feel the sand on your toes, you see your feet moving. You don't see, your whole body, you don't see your head, you just see what's in front of you. See the ocean, you can and then put yourself in there with the feeling, the smell, the touch, really get into that visualization. But that's a very big difference, and that can make a big difference about how quickly you can bring things into your 3D. Okay. And the other thing that this is so timely with habits, is things get really, especially when you start to do this work or any work on yourself, things get really messy before they get better. Who can relate? Who can understand or appreciate that, right? So I equate it to cleaning out the pantry or the refrigerator. When you need to do that, you put everything on the counter, right? You put it all out there and it is a mess. There is so much stuff you don't even know where to begin. And then you slowly start to put it back together, and then you end up with this beautiful, clean pantry, fridge, whatever it is. So it gets very, very messy. And that's what happens a lot of times when we start something like a, weight loss program. It's really, really uncomfortable. Things seem to be getting worse before they get better. And that's when people give up, right? And that's with anything. That's with setting habits. That's with, I'll tell you, like I started in on my, personal growth journey a couple years ago, and things got really, really dark, like the dreams I was having, the experiences. And I thought, what is happening? So it happened, you have to kind of clear that dust, and it's going to get up in the air before it can settle back down and really get clean, right? I just heard this today. I thought it was brilliant. Like, so you go into your attic to clean it out and it looks clean, but it's super, super dusty. So you actually have to disrupt all of that dust, and then it will, you got to get it all off, clear everything, and then that dust will go away. But if you just look at it, you're like, it's fine. Everything's great in my life. I don't need to do anything else, until you realize like, oh, I've got some work to do and it's going to get a little messy before it gets better. So as we talk about habits today, I want you guys to think about just that. So I personally, we'll talk about this, but I personally use like a habit tracker, and it was really interesting to identify at what point I wanted to give up on my new habits. And it happened, I'll never forget, it happened like on, well, first off, there's a dopamine hit when you set a new habit, right? When you set a new goal, you get excited. And so you're like, yeah. And then if you can make it first, past the first few little bit, great. But then once the novelty wears off, like you're out. And for me, I was keeping track, and it was about day 11. And I'm like, what am I? And mine was just about biting my nails. It wasn't, it doesn't seem like a big deal to some, but for me, it was a pretty big deal. And so it was pretty interesting. Like, so when we talk about that, I want you guys to think about, where in your journey do you find yourself like, and the best way to do that is to track it. Okay, so today we are on, so when we think about the ACE framework, I have to remind you guys, so we have A for awareness, C is for clarity, and then E is for embodiment. So being aware of our thoughts, feelings, and in today's case, those habits, those triggers, and then the clarity around who is it that I want to be, right? What do I want to create? Who do I want to be? And then the embodiment, how do I show up? What is something I can do today to embody that new me? Okay, so that's just a reminder of the ACE model. So specifically, we're on the clarity piece today, which is perfect because we're talking about habits and who is it that we want to be, and what habits do we have that we can think about breaking, making, etc. So I wrote down a few things. So defining goals is easy, right? For the most part. We can think about what we want to do. I bet if I asked everybody right now, they'd have a goal in mind. That's the easy part, but reaching them, a little bit harder. Would you guys agree? Right? Yeah, maybe. And so I love these statistics. I thought, we've heard them before, but just to reiterate. So 40% of marriages fail in 5 years. 95% of dieters gain back their weight, and I would say plus more. 80% of businesses fail, and the 70% of lottery winners lose all of their earnings, it's usually like within a year or two. And a lot of that has to do with like their set point, but also, they don't have the habits in place to maintain their newfound wealth. So the set a goal, take action, and achieve, that doesn't work. It's like really the hustle and the grind. So we're going to talk about today, how can we start to slowly make changes in our lives? So a lot of this information I studied as one of my mentors. His name is John Assaraf, and he wrote a book. He's written many books, but one of the books that I really loved was called Inner Size. So there's exercise for our physical body, there's inner size for our brain. So it's all about the neuroplasticity and how our brain adapts to change, what's the primary function of the brain, etc. So a lot of the things that I'll talk about come from that, as well as other places, but I would say a lot of the information that really resonated with me, I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. So what he says is the brain has two priorities. Okay, so we'll just do a little bit of background before we dive into like the good stuff, our habits. So our brain has two goals, and that is to keep us safe emotionally, physically, mentally. That's also keep us safe from guilt, shame, fear, failure, right? All those things. And then the second goal of the brain is efficiency. So it loves habits because it just wants to do more with less, right? So anytime it can conserve energy, that's what it's going to do. So when you have a routine or familiar, courses of action, your brain loves that because it's just easier and it runs on this, this habit loop, right? And that's also why we keep repeating the same stuff over and over because it's just easy and effortless. And I love the analogy. I picture like you're up at the top of a mountain and like water needs to go down the mountain. It's going to find the ruts, right? It's going to find the ruts and it's just going to take the path of least resistance and it's going to go down there. So I think about those ruts as like our habits. So our habits actually never go away. Like, so even if you're, when you replace a habit, your old habit never goes away. It just kind of decays. But that's exactly why when you stop doing the new one, so New Year's resolution, we stop doing the new one, how quickly the old one comes back, right? Isn't that amazing? It never went away. It's just that you just didn't use it for a while. It was kind of the path less taken. Then all of a sudden, you aren't doing the new thing. And it's like, oh, I remember how to do it. It's efficient. It's safe. And so I thought that was really interesting. I also love thinking about our brain as like the thermostat. So we are within, currently the way that we operate, we have this comfort zone set and our habits, everything that we do is within this comfort zone. So anytime we go outside of the comfort zone that we've trained our brain to do, it goes, nope, and it goes right, gets us right back to that comfort zone. So when we create a new habit, this is why you can't go from, 0 to 60. Yes, we all want that quick fix. And especially in the world that we live in, it's like, yeah, we can have it, can't we? But as soon as we get outside that comfort zone, your body is going to do everything it can to get you back into your, your set thermostat, right? So that is why, we tend to self-sabotage. We don't know what we're doing, but this is exactly what's happening is our bodies say, no, 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 this is really uncomfortable. It's called cognitive dissonance. Something's off here. This isn't the way we operate. My job is to keep you safe, right? I talked about that as one of the 2 priorities. So now I feel really unsafe. I don't know what's happening here, and I'm going to help you, and we're going to get back to our comfort zone. And then as a result of that, we tell ourselves rational lies as to why it's just not the right time. It's not the right time right now. I'll start it on Monday. I have a big event coming up and I'm going to need to drink for that, or, whatever the situation is, we rationalize our way out of that new habit. And then we go back to that really comfortable thermostat set point. Does that like make sense, or is anything new that when I was like, oh, that makes so much sense, right? Yeah. Okay, let me open up just in case. Let me open up chat here. Okay. I already took, how many days do you think, quiz time, it takes, and this is really a pretty wide answer, so don't worry, there's many right answers, but how many days do you think it takes to really kind of create a new habit loop? You're unmuted. Oh, let's see.
And muted. And I am going to say, in my experience, it takes 3 days.
3 days.
And yep, 3 days to really get a new habit going, but also only 3 days to totally lose that same habit.
Okay, so Gina says 30. Man, what were you saying?
21. 3 weeks.
21. And Kristen, do you have any?
I was going to say 3 weeks as well. Yeah.
And in fact, my book, I talk about this. Like I subscribe to the 21 days to make or break a habit. You guys, the research shows that it is anywhere from 66 to 365 days to even start to disrupt a habit. So that is why. And so I created, as a result of this, I call it 100 to happy, but we'll call it 100 to habit. And the 100 to happy is really tracking whatever this is that you want to do for 100 days and monitoring, but also adding in positive affirmations. Mandy, I had this grand vision for schools. It's 100 to happy, where you start new patterns and you have positive affirmations. So, but the 100 to habit for today's course is, I think that's kind of the happy medium, right? Between 1 year and a few months. So isn't that amazing? Because that is why, you guys, if I told you I wanted to give up after 11 days, and Michelle, I'm so impressed if you can change anything in 3. I mean, that is like, I pronom to you. I would say, 11 days, I wasn't even scratching the surface of my new habit loop, and I was rationalizing, nobody cares what my nails look like, and then I looked back at my tracking sheet and I made it to 66 days of tracking and then just dropped off. And I have a couple 100 to happy, tracking for different things, but I really encourage you guys to track this because it will be pretty eye-opening. Like maybe you're, lit up. And I also at the same time, you guys, with it tracked like where, like my mood and where I was in my cycle. And also, or if I was, there's, that was a different story a few years ago, right? But I would say, if you have a cycle, where are you at? And then also, if like alcohol was at play or anything like that, just to kind of see if there were any trends and this was just a matter of, again, not biting my nails. So imagine now if I'm trying to change my eating patterns or add workout into this or, something like that, right? So, okay, let's talk about what's happening with the, so any questions on that before we dive into the habit loop? Okay, cool. Okay, so the habit loop, and I do have a whiteboard that I'll see if I can pull up here. In fact, let me see if I can, let's see if I can do this. Existing whiteboards, and then you guys. Okay, well, you know what I can do? Let's do this.
Michelle, I do have a question.
Yeah.
Because here's my question. To me, if you are trying to change a habit, like at what point is it considered a changed habit? Because I feel like with anything that, for me, anything I've tried to really change
Yeah.
over the course of time, at any point, because it's usually something that's hard, otherwise I'd already be doing it, right? Like
Right.
if I tried to stop biting my nails, that would be hard for me for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So if I just say that I stopped biting my nails and I tracked it and I didn't bite my nails, then, for 66 days, just say, throwing
Yeah.
out the minimum day or amount of days, I feel like at any point, like it could be 2 years, and all of a sudden I'll have a really bad day and I'll start biting my nails. So it's like, really, when is a habit, when do you ever really feel like your habit has changed? That's my question.
No, I think that's brilliant because that's what happens. So right now we're going to talk about how to disrupt our habit loop and create a new one. But like we talked about, the old habit never goes away. So I think to your point, Michelle, now you're aware of it. Before it was just maybe, if we're talking about nails, it was just like something that you did unconsciously. Now you're aware of it and you actually will ask yourself, okay, I've gone this far. Do I want to do this, right? So there's going to be this pause that maybe you didn't have before, and to ask yourself, like, is this worth it, right? Is it worth eating that? So I would say that, to use an extreme example, but like alcoholism, I think you make that choice every time where you say, am I going to do it or am I not going to do it? And it sounds like severe, but that's really until the pattern of not doing something is stronger than the doing it. It's forever going to be that awareness of, okay, I don't know if that.
Yeah, no, that explains it exactly. So it's essentially when the pattern of the new habit becomes stronger than the pattern of the old habit.
Yeah, that's
Really. Okay.
that's what
That
I
makes
think.
sense. I love that.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to try to share my screen. Let's see, one participant. Let's see what happens. This will be fun. Tell me if you guys can see this. Do you guys see the habit loop?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Okay. Do you see your pictures off to the side? You
No,
do?
they're like, are the that we
Are they
currently are
blocking
current
any of
pictures?
the verbiage? Like are your pictures blocking any of the verbiage on the screen? Okay, good. On mine they are, so I just wanted to make sure. Okay, so this is what I created, hoping I could do it on the whiteboard, but I didn't want to spend the time during the class to write it out. So a current habit loop goes like this. We have a trigger. So for example, let's just use like waking up to exercise in the morning. So that's the habit that I want to do. So the habit is that the trigger might be my alarm clock. It goes off. And now here's the behavior. Okay. And this is the place it's very hard to change. Behavior, we just talked about this, right? Like to Michelle's point, like behavior is very, very hard. So the behavior is that I normally hit snooze or I roll back over, but I want to start going to the gym. And then the reward, that's your dopamine hit. That's when you get that rush off of whatever it is. So I say, okay, the alarm goes off, I hit snooze and I get that, oh yeah, roll back over and get all, cozy in bed, right? That's my reward. Now, what you could do it with like mindless munching at nighttime. I hear this, like, I go to bed too early for this, but it could be that the trigger is that I'm sitting on the couch, it's late at night, and I'm finally like relaxed. Maybe this is with wine or with mindless munching. So the trigger is, kind of that environment. So then the behavior is that I reach for something that tastes good or that isn't very healthy. And then the reward is that dopamine hit that, oh, yes, I'm watching my Netflix and I'm eating something yummy. And I just, that's that reward. Okay. So that's what our current habit loop looks like today. So then we want to talk about disrupting the current habit loop with the ACE framework. So what was brilliant is I was going through this and I was like, oh my gosh, this ACE framework works for this too. So excited. So what I want you guys, and what we're going to spend a little bit of time, and I want you guys to think about, your habits. So let me say this. So when you're thinking about your habits, there's a couple things to think about. Do you currently have a habit that you do today and you want to replace it with something else? Okay. There's a couple of things that could happen. So you might be that, okay, I don't exercise and I want to exercise, or I don't, I do the mindless munching and I don't want to. Or do you have a habit that you just want to start, right? It might not be a bad habit that you want to replace. It might just be a brand new habit you want to start. Okay. So if that's the case, then at the end of this habit loop, we'll talk about something called habit stacking. Okay. So, but let's, for this example, talk about that you have a habit that you want to start. So you have one that's a disempowering habit right now, and you want to start a new one. So I don't know if anybody has one off the top of their head that they want to use as an example, or I can use some that I've done personally. Just see if anybody screams out anything.
I like the mindless munching
Okay.
because that is like if I don't go to bed before 10 o'clock, which now my habits have changed,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, well, it's 5 hours. You probably should have another meal. Maybe that will help me get to sleep a little better.
Love it.
I mean,
Okay. So the first thing here is as we disrupt our habit loop, the very first thing, the most important thing, that's why this is the A part of the framework, is awareness. You have to be aware of your triggers. Okay. So in Mandy's example, her trigger is it's evening time. It's finally downtime. I'm not working. It's, I'm probably in my comfortable clothes. I'm relaxed. Those are your triggers. Okay. So really thinking about your situation, and this doesn't just have to be, this also could be like how you react to things too. But what I mean is if you're disrupting a habit and you want to create a new habit, it doesn't have to be, I want to eat differently. I want to exercise differently. It could even be like how I react to somebody, right? So this works in all these scenarios. So the first thing is the trigger. And sometimes your triggers are people. That's what made me think of it is, maybe it's that I go to work and something triggers me, right? I wasn't going to do that today, and then I got triggered by this, and now you're off in this loop. So I want you to be thinking about your awareness of what your triggers are. Then I want you to have clarity around what you want your new behavior to look like. So Mandy, we just talked about what your triggers could be, right? It's nighttime, it's dark, the TV, TV's on, I'm all comfortable. And then the behavior that I used to do was, we'll just call it mindless munching. But what I want to do is, and this is where you get to decide exactly what that looks like, either mindless munch less, mindless munch on healthy items, right? Or just go to bed earlier. I don't know, those are just three that came to mind. So you get to decide individually what you want that behavior to look like. And then the embodiment portion, which is where I want you guys to take one small, teeny tiny action at that moment to reinforce this new habit. And why I say small, teeny tiny is I want you to make it so small that you can't fail. Okay. And that is how you continually build that confidence. So consistency is what matters. It is 1,000 times more important than intensity. So when you say, I'm going to start exercise, or let's use a diet. I'm going to start my diet tomorrow and I'm going to only eat, 1,000 calories. You have gone from no intensity to super intense. That is, you're going to fail. I'll just tell you that, right? That just doesn't work that way. But if you can say, hey, I am going to eat less, and I think I'm not going to have that dessert at lunch, or I'm only going to have 3 bites of it, like something so small. It could be, I'm going to walk 5 minutes today. I want you guys to set that embodiment habit, a reward, as so small you can't fail. I cannot stress that enough. And then over time, you build up, because you're going to build your confidence. You're like, I can do this. Maybe it's you want to get up earlier to exercise. You set your alarm 10 minutes earlier and you walk for 5 minutes around your house. That's it. Does not have to be a big to-do. You don't have to get a gym membership. You do not have to, do anything like that. You just have to slowly start to decay that old pattern, replace it with a new pattern, and then embody that new you, that new version of you that does this habit, right? That makes sense?
So in this example, the embodiment could be, I'm only going to have 1 handful of popcorn instead of the bag of popcorn. Is that?
Yes, 1,000. It doesn't even have to be, I'm not going to mindless munch. It might just be, hey, I normally have 6 kinds of candy in front of me. Tonight, I'm only going to have 5, or I'm only, it doesn't, you guys, I'm telling you, if you start to change your habits this way, first off, you don't feel so restricted, but your mind will, and then your reward now becomes, I can do this, right? Like you start to build that confidence, you get a little bit excited and you're like, well, that wasn't so hard. Next thing you know, you've gone from 6 types of candy a night down to 1, down to none. And now I'm walking, or, whatever it is, because you've slowly over time built those changes into it. Yep. That's perfect. And that too, that is where I think what I would have done, I'll only speak for myself, is I would have rationalized my way out of it and said, well, I'm still eating candy, so I still failed. So what does it matter? Bring on the ice cream and we'll just start again tomorrow. Or we won't start because I know it's not going to work, right? Or what happens to me with weight loss is for the first 3 months, I actually put on weight. It's always been this way. And so I know, stay the course, stay the course, stay the course, and then it will drop. But it's like, of course, if somebody sees the scale go up and they're working so hard, they're like, why am I even doing this? Like, this is not worth it. So you have to, just know you're committed to that 100 to habit, and then go from there. So let's say that you don't have a habit that you want to necessarily replace, but you have one that you want to start. So that's a brand new, fresh habit that, all your habits are very empowering and you want to add another one to the mix, right? Let's pretend that's your scenario. Then what I would recommend is what we call habit stacking. So if you already have a habit, that's a good habit, stack on that. So for example, I wanted to start doing Duolingo, which is the language app on my phone. And I already have a habit of a morning routine. So I stack Duolingo at the end of my morning routine every day. So now I've been doing it for 364 days, or 300, maybe it's 44 days. Not very fluent, PS, but it's a different story. But it's now a habit. I do it every single morning because it's part of, I've stacked it on top of something that I already do that's already a strong, healthy habit, right? Going back to the habit loop, you guys, this awareness piece is really where we have the most impact. it's the clarity around what you want, that's great, but that's harder to do, right? We are so, our habits are these deep ruts, and then our embodiment, although I want to make it as easy as possible for you, that's also kind of hard, because that's where we get our dopamine hit. And I just want that bite of candy, or I just want whatever. And then when you have it, you're like, oh, why did I do it? It wasn't that good. So the awareness part, the triggers, this is where the magic happens. So if you can start to, and so Michelle, that's when we were talking about at what point is a habit. In my mind, that's going to become the most crucial down the road, is that, ooh, I now have given myself that space to recognize that I'm going back down a road. Is it worth it? I've gone this far. Is it worth it? Right? Do I want to throw in all my chips for, this one nail bite? Such a funny example, but for anybody that bites their nails, it's like so real. So I think if you guys can start to really be aware of your triggers, and what I would recommend is starting with, one habit, and then, you might want a habit where you have one and you want to replace it, and maybe you have another one you want to habit stack, but it would be like 2 max, right? 2 max. And then as you build some confidence, then you start adding new things, but you don't have to do everything all at once. Okay. So with that, the only other thing I'll say before I want you guys to do it, spend just a few minutes doing this, is I love this too. It's called roots and shoots, if you've heard of this. So long before you see the shoots of a plant, the roots are being, what's the word? The roots are growing. I can't think of another word, but so much is happening underneath the surface. And that's quite often, we give up long before we see the shoots on the plant or on our new habit. So think of this as the law of gestation. So when you want to change a new habit, it takes time. Or I know, if I want to lose weight, things aren't going to look that great on the outside. Maybe initially it takes a little time for these, beautiful shoots to show up. So I heard this and I loved it. So 2 ounces a day. If you're working to lose weight, you could lose 2 ounces a day. That you're never going to notice that. Nobody's, oh, I lost 2 ounces a day. That's amazing. But 2 ounces over 3 months is 10 pounds, and over a year is 40 pounds, right? So those tiny little increments are what makes a difference. And that's why I want you guys to make those tiny little embodiment changes on your new habits to create this lasting habit. So with that, you see the questions up here. So do you have something that you want to stop, or something that you want to start? And then I want you to write out your new habit loop. Okay, so that's what's the awareness, what's your trigger, what is the behavior, the clarity around now, what do I want to do? And what's that one small embodiment action I can take today? And then I just, let's spend a few minutes doing that. Let's take like 5 minutes to do that. And then let's come back together. And if you finish before 5, just put into checks. I don't want to keep you if we're all done. Okay, how are you guys doing? We good? Okay, perfect. Does anybody want to share their new loop or have any questions that we can work through as a group?
Michelle, it's Gina. I could share mine.
Go for it, please.
Okay, so Actually, I have already started it. I started doing Pilates, which I really had never tried before. I'm actually doing it at home. And the reason I'm doing that is because of the convenience. Like you were saying, I didn't have to get a gym membership. I didn't have to worry about that. But as you know, I have two homes. So I also had to make it flexible enough that I could do it no matter where I was, weights at both places, things like that. So that has all worked out really well. So I've been doing this now for 30 days. I absolutely love it, but here comes the clarity. Now, life happens. The day gets busy. I've been doing it in the afternoon. I'm finding that I'm having a harder time completing the workout or getting time to do it. So now stepping back, listening to you today, I'm thinking about, well, I don't have to do the whole workout. I could do 15 minutes of my workout and not be disappointed in myself and feel like, oh, you've missed another day of workout, really trying to embody that whole, like, what's my goal? Am I really trying to worry about, did I do the whole 45-minute workout, or did I just get the exercise I needed, at least achieve some of what I wanted to get done and be happy about that? Some other things I was thinking about too is because it's all beginner that I'm doing. So now I'm thinking, well, I'm starting to find that, hey, I feel like I could advance a little bit. I might be able to try some new things, some of the new Pilates exercises and things. And then I also have a friend that I've encouraged to do this along with me. So we're trying to encourage each other, so, hey, did you get to your workout? Did you try, seeing if we're trying different things. So, I'm trying to really stay with it, be consistent, but I also love the habit tracker because I think that will help me a lot.
I love that. I love the thought too of it doesn't have to be all or nothing, because that's what happens. If we
Yeah.
don't do all, then oh, I failed, and it's Tuesday, so let's just start on Monday. The week's already 2 days in. We'll just, we'll call it. No, that's perfect, Gina. Well done. Congrats on the new start of the habit too. 30 days. You're third of the way there.
I know I'm not 365 days, but I'm at least 30 in, right?
I love it. Anyone else?
I can share mine. I just said that I, wanted to start walking again, and the awareness for me is a kind of that my excuses. I'm tired, I'm exhausted. Have you guys seen that little, it's on Facebook, the little kid that he's, I don't know, 5, and he's this country little boy, and he's like, I'm tired, I'm cranky, and I had a tough day at school. And no, I don't want to wrestle with you. I don't know, maybe, I'm tired, I'm cranky. And that's kind of how I'm at the end of the day. And I deserve a break, man. I deserve to go home and just sit on the couch and watch some mindless reality TV or sports, right? So that's in my mind. But then the clarity is that I also deserve to have a healthy mindset and a healthy body, and walking will help with that. And so doing that activity is good. And I don't have to give up the reality TV or the sports. I can do that after I walk. I can walk during lunch. There's other opportunities to still enjoy that mindless numbing.
You can do it while you're walking. That's what I used to do. I was used to like do it. So what is the one small habit that you're going to start with in regards to your walking habit?
I am going to walk during lunch.
Love it. And honestly, Nate, could be 5 minutes. Just, I know how lunch can go too, right? Especially at a corporate or, a job, you get pulled in many directions. That's the plan. So even 5 minutes, 5 minutes. Or I just say this, one of my favorite things to do with meetings that you have with people is take them, like today we're doing a walk, and you do a conference call on the walk or what have you. Okay.
Yeah, I've done walking supervision with people before, and that's kind of fun. Get out of the office and you're outside in the fresh air. So yeah.
And more likely to actually share what's on your mind because you're not like, face to face, eye level. It's like,
yeah.
Love it. Good job. Well done. I'm excited for you.
Thank you.
One or Miss Mandy? Anyone?
Sorry, when you came back on the screen after you muted us, I had no voice at all. I couldn't hear you. I saw your lips moving, so I decided to switch it.
Drop off.
So I did the mindless munching, and then I really want to get back into intermittent fasting that I've been doing, and I've been so relaxed on it. And so I'm going to tackle two. So, really my awareness is that I know I have done this before and I ended up losing over 100 pounds, and I just want to, but I've maintained like 90% of that staying off. So I feel like I've tackled that, but I still want to get back into the pattern. So really, I just want to make sure that I'm planning my schedule accordingly. And that's my awareness, is that I don't give myself a lunch break. I give myself an exercise break. So it could be mental, it could be physical. And then just making sure I do the one meal a day. The clarity is just really making sure that I am providing the opportunity to myself daily and not putting myself in situations that I wouldn't benefit from. Does that make sense? Um, and then really the reward or the embodiment is seeing that feeling healthier, having better attention spans, and then really kind of that mindset and focus, and then the weight loss.
Yeah. So I heard you say like the change that you're going to make is scheduling and then making sure that one meal is planned for your day and avoiding kind of the triggers that lead to something other than being able to follow through. Is that right?
Yes, working in education, there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen that like to bring their goodness to the office. And I support 14 schools, so that's 14 sets of chefs, and it's rude to not join. So I've given myself grace with that, and just
Yeah, think through that, because that's a big trigger, right? Like where I remember working in office, it was always donut day or something, so thinking through like how do you, and even that's where the visualization comes in, like visualize that the tray of food is in front of you and how do you respectfully decline, or how can you take one and just not, whatever, visualize it over and over so that you're successful when it happens. Yeah, that's great. I believe in you. 2 is a good goal. I like it. Okay, 1, what do you have? I know you have something
Okay,
good.
I'll be quick. I know we're kind of at the top of the time. So it's so funny. I had all these different habits that, I want to learn Spanish. I want to play my guitar, which I'm staring at right now. I want to like make sure I hit my golf balls. I want to, whatever. And then as I was really thinking through it, I'm like, well, wait, I'm already like overwhelmed and overbooked most of the time. And what I've been craving this year, which is very different from me, is just space, like space
Mm.
and time to rest if I wanted to, or to do a project if I wanted, or, to do just space and time to have some freedom as opposed to being so booked up that I have no freedom.
Mm.
Um, and so the awareness, the trigger, I think for me is, so if I want to create more space, the trigger for me is anything I can see that needs to be done. So if there's anything disorganized in my house, or like if I didn't do the dishes last night because I was too tired, or whatever it is, that is one trigger. The other one is like, I've just got this thing where I'm always feel like if I have space in my schedule, I should be inviting a friend to coffee or something, like making connections. And I love that, but I get just way too overbooked. So those are kind of my two triggers. My clarity, what I want it to look like is just space in my day. Like, yeah, I'm happy to be busy and whatever. And then at some point in my day, just say I've got an hour where there is nothing scheduled. I can do whatever I want with it. I mean, that to me sounds like absolutely bliss. Um, so my embodiment is going to be one, thinking about my future self wanting that space in my day. So like at night when I'm like, oh no, I'm really just too tired to do the dishes. It's like, oh, am I really? Or am I just putting it off? And then tomorrow I'll be all busy doing all the things I just didn't take care of right now. So like, why not just take care of my dishes right now? Get them done in 10 minutes. you know, in addition to whatever else it is. And then the other thing is, like, I think I need to purposefully set a limit on my like friend invites or, you know, social things. And so I was trying to think about how to do that. Like maybe, I mean, I think I'm just going to stop doing that. It'll be fine. I still can text my friends. We'll still see each other every once in a while. I just need to stop. I don't need to be, I feel like I'm Julie McCoy, the social director for
Love
all
book.
of my friends. Yeah. So I'm like, they can, I'll see them. They can take care of themselves. I think I'm just gonna stop.
Good for you, man. I thought of you because I know you're very social and you love it. But I think, Michelle, I love that awareness too, because maybe it's when you get the urge to invite someone, you just don't, or you know, maybe you even track like how many you do in a week. And then you say, okay, I actually don't do that many. I'm just gonna do one less, or, you know, whatever, because clearly no matter how many you do, it feels too many because you're saying I want space. And so what
Yeah.
you want is in contrast with what you're doing, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Can
Thank
I
you.
say that it also provides an opportunity for others to step up to the plate and do things, which
That's
is
a
hard
really
for me to
good
let go
point.
of.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it doesn't happen, and then I'm disappointed, but I have to provide the opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's been the hard change for me with mindset.
I love that. And I think that's totally true. Yeah, I like that.
Oh, you guys, this was so good. Thank you, everybody, for joining, for speaking up and sharing. And don't forget, consistency over intensity, okay? And make the change so small that you can't fail, and then track it. 100 to habit, and we will be following up. So next month, we're going to talk about, if you're able to join, we're going to talk about hitting upper limits and what we do and how we kind of sabotage. So this is perfect in regards to habit. We're going to talk about what happens, right, when we hit that and how we go, oh, I'll rationalize myself back to what's comfortable, and lofty questions that we can ask ourselves. So I'm excited about the embodiment for next month. But in the meantime, love you all. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Bye.
much,
Thank
Michelle.
you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Tina. Bye,
Bye,
ladies.
you guys.
Bye.